Greetings and salutations. Today we'll be covering the 1962 Alcatraz escape. In the shadow of June 1962, a daring prison escape shrouded in mystery unfolded at the notorious Alcatraz Island, which was the home for the Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. 3 inmates, Clarence Anglin, John Anglin, and Frank Morris, orchestrated a seemingly impossible breakout from this supposedly impenetrable and inescapable fortress. Under the cover of darkness, the trio would craft papier-mâché heads in their own likeness, placing them in their beds to deceive the guards during their late-night head count. With meticulous preparation, they would navigate through the ventilation ducts and enter an unused utility corridor. Reaching the main prison walls, they would vanish into the night on board an improvised inflatable raft. In the aftermath of their escape, law enforcement agencies would tirelessly pursue hundreds upon hundreds of leads. Unfortunately, no definitive evidence would emerge, leaving the fate of the escapees cloaked in uncertainty. Theories would be abound, from their presumed drowning in the icy waters of the San Francisco Bay to the possibility of them having successfully escaped. Despite the FBI's conclusion in 1979 that the escapees had perished, more recent evidence suggests that they might have potentially survived, reigniting debates about their whereabouts. The case files within the U.S. Marshal Services remains open and active, keeping Morris and the Anglin brothers on their wanted list to this day. Going into further detail about the inmates, starting with Frank Morris. He was born on September 1st, 1926 in Washington, D.C. Frank had a troubled childhood after being orphaned at the tender age of 11 and finding himself cast into the world of foster homes. His path was paved by a series of criminal encounters. Starting at the age of 13 years old, he committed his first criminal offense, and as he matured, Morris amassed a rather long rap sheet encompassing crimes ranging from narcotics possession to armed robbery. Having spent a considerable amount of time behind bars, despite his troubled path, he was noted to showcase an exceptional intelligence, ranking in the top 2% of the general population as indicated by IQ testing, boasting a remarkable score of 133. He was well known for having a panache of avoiding confinement, and it was made especially evident when he made his daring escape from Louisiana State Penitentiary while serving a 10-year sentence for bank robbery. Despite enjoying a brief period of freedom, Morris's run would eventually come to an end when he was recaptured during an attempted burglary. On January 20th, 1960, Morris would find himself in the unforgiving shores of Alcatraz as inmate AZ-1441. It was within these confines that he would eventually become one of the key figures of this daring escape. Said escape continues to intrigue and baffle many throughout the world. However, the elusive journey of Frank Morris does not end with him. It would include the brothers John and Clarence Anglin. Born into a family of 14 children in Georgia, John William, born May 2nd, 1930, and his brother Clarence, born May 11th, 1931, shared an unbreakable bond. Their parents, George Robert Anglin and Rachel Van Miller Anglin, toiled as seasonal farmers, relocating the family to Ruskin, Florida, for a more stable income from the flourishing tomato fields. Each summer, the family migrated northwards, journeying up to Michigan to harvest cherries. However, even as youngsters, John and Clarence would display extraordinary courage and aquatic prowess, astonishing the rest of their siblings by fearlessly swimming in the chilling waters of Lake Michigan, even as ice would adorn the surface of the waters. However, their lives would take a darker turn as they entered their teenage years. Clarence's first brush with the law came at the tender age of 14 when he was caught breaking into a service station. Together as a team, the brothers would embark on a series of bank and establishment robberies in the early 1950s, meticulously targeting closed businesses to avoid harm to others. They claimed that they employed a weapon only once, a toy gun, during a bank heist. Later, on January 17, 1958, the brothers, John, Clarence, and Alfred Anglin, orchestrated a bank heist at the Bank of Columbia in Columbia, Alabama. Leading to their apprehension, they would be sentenced to 35 years. As they served their time at various prisons, including Florida State Penitentiary, Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, and Atlanta Penitentiary, they would take part in repeated escape attempts, particularly from the Atlanta facility, which would lead to their eventual transfer to the notorious Alcatraz Island. John arrived on October 24, 1960, as inmate AZ-1476, with Clarence shortly following on January 16, 1961. As inmate AZ-1485. The final member of this cohort was inmate Allen West, born on March 25, 1929. He hailed from New York City and led a life marred by over 20 individual arrests. His criminal journey began with a car theft charge in 1955, resulting in his first imprisonment at Atlanta Penitentiary. Then later, he would be a resident of Florida State Penitentiary. Following an escape attempt from the Florida facility, he would be sent to the notorious Alcatraz Island at the age of 28. He would be designated as inmate AZ-1335. Now that we have covered all the parties involved, it's time to move on to their escape plan. The plan crafted by the four inmates was a daring and meticulous endeavor. It was hatched with their previous connections from having stayed at both Florida and Georgia prisons. Clarence and John Anglin, along with Frank Morris and Allen West, had formed an alliance under the shrewd leadership of Frank Morris. He was the mastermind of their escape attempt. They initiated their plot while assigned to adjacent cells in December 1961. Over the span of 6 months, they would separately widen ventilation ducts beneath their cells. Employing discarded saw blades, along with metal spoons and a makeshift electrical drill created from a vacuum cleaner motor, their progress would be concealed with painted cardboard and music from Morris's accordion during the prison's music hour. Once the ducts were spacious enough, the daring quartet accessed the unguarded utility corridor, which was fortunately behind their cells. Ascending to the vacant top level of the cell block, which they had transformed into a covert workshop, utilizing raincoats and pilfered materials, they would craft life preservers based on a design found by Morris in an issue of Popular Mechanics. Other ingenious ideas surfaced from various magazines, such as crafting a lampshade from resin and creating paddles from plywood and screws. The quartet would go on to assemble a 6 by 14 foot rubber raft, sealing it with liquid plastic from the shops, which was heated by nearby steam pipes, then climbing a ventilation shaft to the roof, which they accessed by removing a large fan by dismantling its rivets in order to conceal their absence during work. And after their escape, they would fashion dummy heads using a mixture of soap, toothpaste, concrete dust, and toilet paper, which they had piled under their blankets so as to appear to be sound asleep, thereby deceiving the prison guards. On the fateful night of June 11th, 1962, the four inmates put their meticulously crafted plan into action. However, fate seemed to have other plans for Allen West. As he attempted to break free from his cell through the vent, he would encounter a hardened cement obstacle barring his path. Despite his best efforts, the time-consuming ordeal left him stranded, and the opportunity to escape would slip away. Undeterred by this, Morris and the brothers would proceed with their daring getaway. Climbing through the ventilation shaft to the roof, they would only encounter a momentary disturbance, which went unnoticed by the guards. Seizing the moment, they descended the 50 feet that it took took for them to reach the ground, utilizing a kitchen pipe as their means of escape. Then they would scale 2 barbed wire perimeter fences and make their way to the northeast shoreline, cunningly avoiding the prison's watchful searchlights and gun towers. There, near the power plant and shrouded in darkness, they would skillfully inflate their makeshift raft, using a stolen concertina, which they had modified to serve as a bellows. The time was around 10 p.m. when they finally boarded their raft, its buoyant potential offering the hope of freedom. With their destination set on Angel's Island, they would embark on their perilous journey into the unknown, leaving behind a trail of mystery and intrigue. In the aftermath, their daring escape remained shrouded in mystery for a significant amount of time, as the dummy head ruse had been successful, and it had obscured the inmates' absence until the morning of June 12th. Afterwards, a massive investigation unfolded, involving both military and law enforcement agencies, who would launch an extensive air, sea, and land search that would persist for 10 long days. On June 14th, a Coast Guard vessel made a perplexing discovery: a floating paddle about 200 yards off the southern shore of Angel Island. Simultaneously, on another vessel in the same vicinity, workers would stumble upon a wallet meticulously wrapped in plastic, containing names, addresses, and photographs of the Anglins, friends, family, and relatives. Further intrigue arose when shreds of raincoat material, presumably from the raft, would be found on a beach close to the iconic Golden Gate Bridge on June 21st. The following day, a deflated life jacket would be found, which was made from the same raincoat material, and it was retrieved just 50 yards off of Alcatraz Island by a prison boat. Astonishingly, despite these discoveries, no physical evidence or the escapees would be uncovered. Early on in the investigation, the FBI speculated that the escapees may have tragically drowned. However, the absence of human remains raised doubts as the mystery deepened. A month after their escape, a Norwegian ship, the SS Norfjell, reported sightings of a floating body in the ocean 15 nautical miles from the Golden Gate Bridge. However, the body was not retrieved, and the sighting was not reported until months after the discovery. The identity of this floating figure remains uncertain, with differing opinions from various coroners. The FBI's current official stance leaned towards the probability of the escapees succumbing to the treacherous currents and the icy waters of the bay, even though West had indicated plans to steal clothing and a car upon reaching land. There had been no such thefts reported in the area. The aftermath of the daring escape from Alcatraz in 1962 had left investigators and the public baffled, as there were later reports of sightings of the escapees, which would continue to emerge over the years, creating an atmosphere of intrigue and uncertainty. On January 1965, the FBI would pursue a lead which suggested that Clarence Anglin had sought refuge in Brazil. Agents would be dispatched to South America. However, direct evidence of his presence eluded them, leaving this as nothing more than a dead end. In 1967, a man contacted the Bureau claiming to be Frank Morris's classmate, asserting that he had encountered him in Maryland. The man provided a vague description mentioning a small beard and mustache. However, he would offer no further details. Throughout the years, members of the Anglin brothers family received sporadic postcards and messages. Most were left unsigned, but some bore a mysterious signature of Jerry or Jerry and Joe. A perplexing Christmas card was allegedly sent in 1962 from John to his mother, which added further questions to the mystery. Strange incidents would continue, as the mother of the Anglin brothers would receive anonymous flowers every Mother's Day until her passing in 1973. At her funeral, 2 peculiar, heavily made-up women of extraordinary height would be sighted. In the following years, 6 or 7 sightings of the Anglin brothers would be reported in the North Florida and Georgia regions. A pivotal moment would occur in 1989 when a woman called in to the Unsolved Mysteries tip line identifying a photo of Clarence Anglin as a match to the description of a man living near Mariana in Florida. Another woman would confirm this identification, citing the right eye color, height, and other features. Additionally, witnesses claimed that a sketch of Frank Morris bore a striking resemblance to a man she had observed in the same area. Decades have passed, and reported sightings have only deepened the enigma surrounding the fate of Clarence Anglin, John Anglin, and Frank Morris. To better understand this mystery, a timeline can be formed with the information provided. June 11th, 1962. Inmates Frank Morris, John Anglin, Clarence Anglin, and Alan West initiate their plan to escape from Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. Said plan involved the use of tools like spoons, used saw blades, and vacuum cleaners to widen ventilation ducts beneath their rooms, concealing their work with painted cardboard. On that date, the inmates would climb to the vacant top level of the cell block through an unguarded utility corridor and use the equipment they had stolen to finalize the crafting of their escape equipment. June 12th, 1962. The escape is discovered in the morning due to their ingenious ruse no longer working. Said ruse was to create papier-mâché heads. June 14th, 1962. A Coast Guard ship finds a floating paddle about 200 yards off of the southern shore of Angel Island. It is believed that this paddle was from the escapees' raft. June 21st, 1962. Shreds of a raincoat material believed to be the remnants of the escapees' raft are found on a beach near the Golden Gate Bridge. July 17th, 1962. A Norwegian ship reportedly spots a body floating in the ocean about 15 nautical miles off the Golden Gate Bridge, but they do not retrieve it. 1965. The FBI investigates a rumor that Clarence Anglin is living in Brazil. However, they find no direct evidence of this. 1967. A man claims to have bumped into Frank Morris in Maryland, but provides limited details. 1989. Reports of the Anglin brothers' family occasionally receiving unsigned postcards and messages over the years comes out. The mother of the Anglin brothers receives flowers anonymously every Mother's Day until the day of her death in 1973. And 2 strangers are noted to attend the funeral. 2013, the San Francisco Police Department receives a letter allegedly written by John Anglin, claiming Frank Morris died in 2008 and Clarence Anglin in 2011. The letter's authenticity is inconclusive. 2019, investigative journalist Christoph Putzel corroborates FBI information and reports sightings of the escapees' likeness in various states. The fates of the escapees are considered a continuing mystery, and their daring Alcatraz escape is slotted to continue to captivate the world with unanswered questions. As the confounding tale of the Alcatraz escapes continues to unfold, we are left to ponder the perplexing possibilities that persist. Did the daring inmates, Morris and the Anglin brothers, achieve their elusive freedom, or did the turbulent tides of San Francisco Bay claim their fates? The crafty concoction of dummy heads and the covert creation of a clandestine workshop has added to the intrigue and endurance of this mystery. Sightings and letters, while inconclusive, lend a tantalizing touch of temptation to their ultimate destination. The case of these cunning convicts keeps us riddling with questions. If you remained with me until the end, I thank you. And I do hope you stay tuned and subscribe for more content.